All right, welcome everybody to the 12 o'clock show with Mayor Joe. Joining us today, we have a couple of guests from the Franklin County Department of Health, and I'll have them introduce themselves. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Baumann. I'm the Division Manager for Maternal and Child Health.
Hi, and I'm Jenna Marquez. I am the Immunization and School Health Supervisor for Franklin County Public Health.
Well, I appreciate you guys both coming on the show. I know you kind of pushed Joe out of the way so you could be on the show instead of him, but hopefully everything's working well with Joe. Today is the first day of school in Reynoldsburg, so obviously we're going to have a couple of school-focused topics. What are some of the best practices you think that families can take part of so that when the kids are getting home today at school, they're not bringing anything else other than them with them? Anything?
I mean, washing your hands. Can't say it enough. It's very important to wash your hands. I mean, getting a shower too wouldn't even hurt. Bringing home, don't get into your bed with your clothes that you went to school in. So we always practice washing your hands at least 20 seconds, both the top and the bottom. It's very, very important all year round. And if you're going to cough, make sure you're coughing into your elbow so you're not spreading it everywhere. If you can, change your clothes when you get home or take a shower. That's always very important because then we're not spreading that throughout the house. We are a big proponent of taking our shoes off in the house, but that's okay if you don't do that at home. But you can carry it in the house on your shoes. So just keeping that in mind. If you do wear shoes in the house.
That's good. And I think another piece of advice for that one is if you have teenagers or junior high kids that are just learning about deodorant, that's also a good reason for them to take showers as often as possible.
That's right. That's right.
Always, so it's always fun with that. Now, we know in general, because we've all lived through the wonderful world of COVID, what Franklin County Health does. But outside of that type of thing, what are some of the services that Franklin County Health offers? And you have very specific things that each of you are kind of overseeing. So please tell us what kind of services are out there.
So in the Prevention and Wellness Division, we have our immunizations clinic that Jenna supervises and oversees. Obviously, with the start of school, we talk to parents and families about the importance of staying up to date on your vaccinations, because that's going to help prevent those vaccine preventable diseases. So that's one of the areas. In maternal and child health specifically, we have a complex medical help program or CMH program, and that is acts as it's a state program, and it acts as a backup insurance for families that have kiddos that have chronic diagnoses,
Okay.
A long list of diagnoses, and so the backup insurance piece of it covers the medical treatment that they get, and then there's also they get a public health nurse through this program who works with them on all the paperwork that they have to do for this program, because every program has a lot of paperwork. They also do home visits with them. They connect them to community resources that they need. Just a lot of case management that they do with these families. So.
Well, I think a lot of people, and from the outside looking in, I don't know how many people even know that those are options. And I could easily see how families that might be going through certain situations like that, they have no idea that this is there. And you mentioned the paperwork, because everybody gets annoyed just when they're filling out a normal doctor screener at the beginning of the year. Imagine all the paperwork with other conditions that come on top of it. That has to be frustrating, and any help with that would be great.
Yes,
so
yes.
That's good. And the vaccines are always good. I was a teacher myself, and that was one of those things we were having. I know we do our flu shot clinics here and things like that, so that's always a good thing. As far as this, as far as the schools go, is there any other issues that you see in the schools? Maybe there's some vaccines or anything specifically that that would be beneficial for students in schools or families dealing with kids. Did you have vaccine clinics in general, or they're just kind of
Yeah. So our typical immunization clinic hours are Monday through Thursday, 8 to 4:30.
Yes. 8:30 is when we see our first
8:30 to
patient.
4:30,
Okay.
and then but for the start of the school season, we have scheduled several extended hour vaccine clinics. And so there's a couple that we're holding on Saturdays. There's a couple that we are staying until 7:30 in the evening, and that's really to help those families that work get those kids in for those vaccines that are important.
It'll save them in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned COVID earlier. We've had our fair share of health scares over the last few years and things like that. Is there anything that, as an agency, you guys are kind of looking at to sit there and say, hey, this is on the horizon? I know measles was a thing at one point, and bird flu was a thing that that there was an eye being kept on or anything like that. And other than the flu, which I know obviously will be back as always.
Yeah, so the measles outbreak is still throughout the nation, but fortunately for Ohio, we haven't seen any new cases yet in the last few weeks.
Okay.
But there's we always stay cautious because a lot of travel at the end of summer, families traveling to other areas of the country. So we still are watching for that as well. Again, the vaccination is important for that. Right now, COVID-19, through July, we did see a little bit of a surge, which has been the normal the last couple of years in July. Again, I don't know if has to do with travel, possibly everybody going on vacation and that kind of thing. And right now, our respiratory viruses are at a very low rate,
Okay.
but we're not really in that full
It's a
season yet.
Yeah, it's a little early for it.
We always start watching for that come fall. And again, making sure that we're utilizing the, hand washing and all those
Which, again,
strategies.
up until COVID, you didn't think that was much of an issue, and apparently it was. I mean, I know everybody was talking about what can you teach kids, like certain little songs to sing, just to, to measure the time and stuff like that. So, well, I'm hopeful that we don't have any other weird things going on in general when it comes to kind of that health outbreak in it. But if people have questions, if they want to know more about the programs you were talking about or vaccination clinics, what's the best way to find out about this information?
You can go online at myfcph.org.
Okay.
And, there's a tab that is for residents, and it'll list out all of our community health programs. We have an active living program that does a lot in the community, a lot of education on active lifestyles, and we participate in a lot of the community health fairs.
Yep, we've seen.
So we really love to educate the communities on how to stay healthy.
No, we appreciate it. Any questions from our viewers so far?
Nope.
All right, then what'll happen is you guys will leave, and then there will be a question, and we'll figure that out afterwards.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate it. I know there's a lot of things to do, but I appreciate you taking the time to come here today, and make sure that Joe at least buys you lunch for coming on the show. Or
Absolutely.
something like that. So I'm sure he's watching, and so he'll be like, yeah, I'm not going to buy lunch for everyone. Well, thank you very much for bringing the information.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Again, thank you to everybody from Franklin County Division of Health to talk about that, just because there are so many different facets of what goes on in that one. So with that, we have a lot of other things going on. Obviously, today is the first day of school for Reynoldsburg, so we've got first day of school today. So as always with the first day of school, sometimes buses are running perfectly, other times not so much. So hopefully those things will be out there. Obviously, traffic's going to be a little bit more because the buses are out there. If you're in the school zones, especially if school is getting ready to close in the next couple of hours, please know that our police officers are in the area and speeding is not recommended. It's not a blitz day, but it definitely is a school zone focused day, so don't speed. Last night was the board meeting, so if you hadn't had a chance to check that out, if you weren't there last night, you can watch it on the website. I know I haven't had a chance to get caught up on that one, but the next board meeting is on September 16th. Communication, lots of cool things I want to kind of talk about, and this kind of covers a lot of different things. So obviously we'll talk a little bit about the BRT in a few minutes, but one of the things that has come up a lot of time is communication, and communication is a lot of different things. We tend to feel that we're incredibly transparent with what goes on within the city. Now, there's a difference between transparency and the definition of what we view it as. We're telling you what we can when we can. That if you have a question for us, this is why we do this show. You can ask those questions right here, and we'll give you an answer. Transparency does not mean that we're going to give you the answer that you want. Those are two different things. So sometimes the answer specifically when it comes to the BRT or different development projects and things like that, doesn't mean that we're not giving you the answer, the information. It just sometimes it's not what you want to hear, or maybe it is. So there's a difference with that. And there's always a process, whether it's a process for the pickleball courts, which the construction in that is going to have to be delayed a little bit for circumstances outside of the city's control, or if it's talking about the DORA, the designated outdoor refreshment area, and how that's coming together. There's all of these things going on. So there is a process that to make sure, and as you've heard the phrase before, sometimes we do move at the speed of government. We try and be a little bit more nimble in most areas, but sometimes that doesn't always work out. But just wanted to throw those things out there. As far as the rest of it, we didn't have really too much of anything other than we did have a question about surveillance cameras. It's kind of related to what is known as the flock camera system. So we've talked about this before. The areas in and around Reynoldsburg, they have what are referred to as flock cameras. These cameras take pictures of your license plate, and it runs it through a database system almost instantaneously. If that license plate comes back as one that has been reported stolen, or there's an outstanding warrant on whoever's licensed to have that car, police are notified and they come in. That's the extent that we use flock for. There are other things that technology is using right now. The specific question is whether or not you're using AI to detect whether or not flock can predict criminal activity or something like that. We're not there yet. This is not, pick your science fiction movie. It's certainly not The Terminator, and definitely not like Minority Report where we're using that. So AI is not going to be in the cards for us for any time. So that came from Reynoldsburg City School Board member Neil Whitman. Did have a really good conversation last Thursday in Cincinnati with a number of mayors from the Ohio Mayor Alliance. I'd like to shout out Mayor Perval for welcoming us all to the great city of Cincinnati. I got there on Thursday morning. I know Wednesday night a number of the mayors ended up going to a Reds game. I'm glad they weren't playing the Cubs because I would have been the only one in Cubs gear, but that's another story. But we talked about a number of things that are facing all of us. We talked about property taxes. So we know property tax issues are coming through the State House. We know that property taxes in general are hitting everyone very hard. And so we're trying to find ways to work with the State House on possible solutions with that. One of those solutions, again, does revolve around the idea of housing. Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland, Dayton, Akron, Canton, all of us that were there and having those conversations did talk about what we're doing as far as housing. We're starting to get a little bit better at housing as a state. Different regions are doing some good things and things like that, but that is one way. And then the last topic was timely because of the crime that is perceived to be out of crazy hand in urban areas. This specific instance was caused by a video that went viral from Cincinnati, and obviously at the initial view of it, everybody got all up in arms. It trended on Twitter. It was on some of the news stations and things like that, when in reality it was a relatively isolated incident that did not affect near as much as what it was seen. Some people used it as, in essence, race baiting because there was an R&B festival going on around the same time, and those two things were actually not related in any way, shape, or form. But it comes back to this idea of crime in urban cities, or in essence, large communities like Reynoldsburg or a Dublin or something along those lines. Crime is not specific to only Democrat cities or Republican cities, even though some make the case otherwise, including a state senator that I had a conversation with recently, or initiated one. But the reality is we do as best a job as we can with what's there. Crime is not near at the expense of what some people may see. I know that I think right now it's being used as an excuse, specifically in places like Washington, D.C. or Los Angeles earlier and things like that. But there are concerns about what happens if those kind of events happen in our community. So we did have a good conversation with that. So it's a great organization, happy to be a part of it, and happy to advocate on issues relating to the police, fire, and pension fund. We talked about, again, the property tax issue and how to work with the state to try and ease the burden on all residents in the state of Ohio on that one. With that, we'll move to everybody's next favorite topic, construction. So Wagner Road Phase 1 is moving along. We do have curb lanes, and now they're doing some of the other things like the approaches and stuff like that. They are hoping to pave that side of the road in the not too distant future, weather depending. Once that area is paved, then traffic will switch. Instead of going northbound on the right side of the road, it'll still go northbound, but it'll be on the left side of the road on the fresh pavement. And then they'll pull up all the pavement on the other side and then redo the same thing and get it ready. So Phase 1 is still on track. Should have two-way traffic in each direction by the end of October, early November, from Main Street all the way to Priestley. And then from Priestley to Broad Street, that will be the Phase 2 thing. There is a Phase 2 meeting tonight here at City Hall. So if you want to come out, they'll start at 6:30 tonight. We will be talking about Phase 2 in very general terms. It's an overview of the project, go through some specific things because it's a little bit different than Phase 1 in terms of some of the workload. Like there's not near as much water line work in this one, but there's still gas line work, but again, not as much. So that's tonight here. Taylor Road is completely done at this point. They did the striping and all of that, so now you know which lanes to get in and where the stop bar is for the stoplight, so that was good. I had a good meeting with our neighbors, Pataskala. They are working on some improvements to the Broad and Taylor intersection, but it's going to be a while before they get there. Their plans for all of this are going to be put in place in 2028, so we have a few years before that one particularly comes. But as they start working through the engineering and all that, we'll kind of make some suggestions as well, especially when you're talking about, number of lanes turning into onto Taylor Road, heading towards Reynoldsburg, or roads going onto Broad Street. Any questions or comments so far?
Yep, we got 3.
Okay.
Someone would like to know, what role does the city government have in being able to overrule the transportation department in designating areas unsafe for kids to walk and require the school to provide busing?
Well, that's a good one. So let's unpack a couple of those things there. So there's safety considerations and there's minimum requirements that are there for, there's a certain distance that they have to provide busing for. So if you're outside of that distance, then they should be providing busing. Typically, we've had conversations with the school district. I know originally they were talking about students in and around the Widener Road area having to walk to school. My understanding is that has been changed. If I'm mistaken in that, I'll follow up, but my understanding is that was changed with it. If there's something specific, an area of town, street, or something along those, please let us know so we can work with you and the school district to make sure that we find the most appropriate bus stop and things like that. I think that's the general idea for that particular question.
And then the next one is flock data shared with federal agencies.
No, we do not share it with federal agencies unless it's something that is, in essence, subpoenaed, or if there's an active investigation that they're looking for something, that there's a bench warrant signed by a judge.
And then the last one is, when will the portable restrooms at Spengler be removed from Tomato Festival?
Oh, for the Tomato Festival? I'm sure that I'm honestly surprised they haven't been picked up. I will double check with that one. Usually that's up to the company that puts them there, so I assume that they'll need to get them out of there relatively soon. But we'll follow up in the chat on that one.
That's all.
All right, so we got that. Other things going on, Streets Part 2. Our alleyway work is done. Hopefully you've seen some of the before and after shots on that one. And yes, I know there's a lot of other roads to do. We do have a few other roads that we're going to try and get done this year. They're actually out to bid right now. Once they get back and we get an idea of what's going on, we'll bring that to council and hopefully get those done. There's about 5 courts and 1 road on the Licking County side that we're using some permissive tax funds for. So that's that. And then once we get that taken care of, we are going to be putting out our, in essence, evaluated roadmap that was done earlier this year, so you can see what condition your road is on. We had our initial meeting this week to kind of identify some of those roads. There's a couple of factors in it. One, how many cars per day travel on that road? There's going to be a question about what's the road condition itself, when's the last time that road was paved. They're going to talk about the curb structure and things like that. But we are getting ready for a rather robust road program for next year. A lot of it will be what is called mill and fill, where we'll take up the existing asphalt and put brand new stuff down. We're going to try and do as much of that as possible in areas where the curbs are in pretty decent shape. If the curbs are not in decent shape, that becomes a much more expensive project. So we're trying to figure out what we can do with that particular part, but that'll all be out there. I do know a couple of areas that have been a major issue for us everywhere on Broadwin and Berkey, north of Graham Road, or east of Graham Road. So those of you that are in that particular area, that is a focus area for us. The 2 entryways and kind of the connector road between the 2 are on the top of my list, along with a few other ones based on the needs in that area. So that needs to be done. Everyone else will have that all out there. We did have 1 of 2 bus rapid transit meetings yesterday. The next one is going to be August 27th at the library from 4 to 6 p.m. Yesterday's was kind of focused on some of the businesses and some of the concerns there, but it was open for anybody who kind of came and showed up to it. So it was a good conversation. So kind of give you an idea of all of this. One, CODA does recognize that there were probably some things that we could work on, some communication issues a little bit better in terms of notifying the businesses and residents of some of these meetings, which again comes into the idea of, we do post these meetings online. We do post the dates and times and things like that as best we can. But at the same time, if you're not paying attention, it's hard for us to make sure to get all that information out on a consistent basis. But we'll continue to work with them and improve that. A couple of questions that came up last week are, how far along are we in the process? So they are at, in engineering parlance, they are at a soft 60% completion. That means that they have a lot of things kind of taken together through the entire project. Again, the entire project's from the furthest eastern part by the Department of Agriculture all the way to downtown Columbus. So they are about 60% complete of it. For Reynoldsburg specifically, there are a couple of the areas that they're looking at. The first one is the intersection at Main and Bryce, which we're working with because we're talking about realigning that intersection. And then the other one, probably the most difficult one, is the Rose Hill intersection. So we did spend a lot of time talking with Dino from Jolly Pirates and a couple of the other people in the area about how that intersection to be there. They haven't gotten it to us yet. The big question is, how do you, if you're driving in either direction and the place that you want to go is on the other side of the street, how do you get your car from one side of the street to the other with that dedicated bus lane? So those are the things that we're working on right now. Other questions came up is, why does Reynoldsburg have to participate? And because Franklin County voted for it. And while Reynoldsburg did not support it as much as what the rest of Franklin County did, it is an initiative that is going to happen. So our role as the city is to try and make it as least intrusive as possible all the way across. And so that's what our goal is when we work with COTA to try and figure out some of these things. Some things are easy to deal with. If the fire trucks can't make the turn or can't get from point A to point B, then they have to do their redesign, which is some of the things that we're looking at now. The rest of it is, where are the areas on Main Street that are going to be more 2 lanes in either direction versus when they kind of like narrow down to 1 lane and then back out to a 2 lane, things of that nature. And that's the stuff that we're working on with them. We are different than Bexley. Bexley is participating in the rapid transit system. The difference is they don't have as much what we call right-of-way. This is the area that is technically under the authority of the city and or the county, depending on which part of the roads are there. Bexley has on-street parking, and they have that median that they had just put in, so there is very limited right-of-way in there, so they will not be able to go in and take some of that stuff out. It's not because Mayor Kessler is against any of that. It's just there's a difference with it because a lot of their stuff is much closer to the road than a lot of businesses in Reynoldsburg. So that's one aspect of it. For us, the area in question is in between Main Street and Bryce Road and Main Street and Haft. Anything beyond Haft Road towards the east is a little bit different because, again, a shortage of right-of-way, specifically in our Old Town area. And then from Wagner to the Department of Agriculture, it is all about density. There is not near as much density in housing or commercial in that area right now to necessitate having those dedicated lanes beyond having the end of the line at the Department of Agriculture that will allow for shuttle services to other parts of the Licking County area. All that being said, not everything is identified yet, and construction schedules have not been figured out. I know that their goal was to start doing utility work next year and maybe construction in 2027. I don't know if they're going to be able to meet that mark, and even if they do meet that mark, I don't know where they're going to start. And honestly, COTA does not know if they're going to start east and move towards the city or start in the city and move out, because we just haven't gotten there. But either way, rapid transit is coming to Reynoldsburg. The buses will be there. There will be dedicated lanes, and we'll do what we can to make sure that we make it, again, as least intrusive as possible. Any questions in the chat from the BRT?
Nope.
If you have questions on the BRT coming up after the show, I'll monitor it and try and get some responses in there as well. Programming, it is already that time, August 29th. We have our first nighttime Livingston House tour, and that's going to be at 9 to 12 a.m. We also have our adult prom on Friday, October 10th from 6 to 9 p.m. and the King and Queen will be crowned at that time. So it'll be interesting because I also think that that's homecoming for the Reynoldsburg Raiders for that night. So there'll be a lot of things going along there. Development updates. A couple of things. You may have seen some signs out on a couple of properties, specifically the PNC site. Those are for our Planning and Zoning Board, which meets on the first and third Thursday of the month. Tomorrow night's meeting for the PNC site is about 1. It is technically in our Old Town area, so there's some aesthetic qualities that have to be made for the multifamily unit housing that's going in there. And there's also some differences in how the elevations of the rooms are. So in a traditional sense, you have to have a certain amount of 9-foot ceilings or 12-foot ceilings, things like that. But it's a little bit different when you have a commercial area and then there's housing behind it, because commercial is a little bit higher, housing is a little bit lower, and so they have to make sure that that's all taken care of. But everything else is on track with that project. Einstein Bagels has already got some of their signs in their windows, but no, they are not open yet, so that's going to still be a little while. And we have heard nothing on the Lancaster apartments. I know I got a couple of questions yesterday and over the last week or so about anything. Again, until whatever company is building in there that wants to build there, they can't build unless they meet our water recommendations. And if they don't meet them, then nothing gets built. And so far, they haven't been able to figure that out. Any questions?
No.
All right. Next thing, we're going to go to fun events. Believe it or not, there are other events other than the Tomato Festival, though most of us are still recovering. We have the Blues and Brews on Friday, September 12th in Huber Park, and we're hoping that we can kind of kick off our designated outdoor refreshment area event at that time, our DORA. Looks like we're going to, we're working with Vicks, Pro, Slab, Eastside Brewery as well to kind of come together and kind of kick some things off in that one. We've got music starting off with Bobby Floyd and Sean Carney, as well as Austin and the Sid Experience. And some food trucks that are going to be there automatically right now: Liberty Kettle Corn, Little Italy Restaurante, Roadster, and Schmitz and Valle Verde. So all of those are online for being there on, again, September 12th, so check that out. Not a lot of other things for the most part going on. There is no show next week. I am taking a week off to kind of recover from the Tomato Festival myself. I'll be in for some of the week. But we're going to really kick September off in a great way on September 3rd. We're actually going to go on site, and we are going to have our first on-site meeting at Slab. So we're going to go out to Slab and talk with the owners about the process and what it's like to run the businesses and things of that nature. We're also going to have a special guest, Shannon Mulligan from Moms Demand Action as well on that particular day. So with that, I don't have anything else. Anybody have questions, comments before we go?
One last one is, any update on what might be going into the old Fridays building?
No, we are still waiting for it. They are finalizing all of that bankruptcy stuff. We're being told probably here back in September, October at the earliest when that is. So what they're doing right now, we know that they've already put out an RFP, a request for proposal, for what restaurants will go in there. So they're going through that process of vetting and figuring out what's going there. I know at my walk and talk last week, we had a good conversation about that. A lot of it was, you can kind of start to figure out what's going to go there. You're probably not going to have an Italian restaurant. You're probably not going to have like a Roosters because there's a BW3's right there. And you're going to probably not have a Mexican restaurant because one just opened up just down the road from there. So it'll probably be something unlike any of those things, but it is going to be a national brand because that is a very prime location. It's a good location. It's got good parking, all that fun stuff. So it's going to be a national brand. It's just fingers crossed on which one. Trust me, the moment I know, I'll blast it all over the place because we're really looking forward to having that one back open again. But a good question. That's it?
That's it.
All right, everybody else, stay safe, stay respectful, and as always, please put your shopping carts away. Stay tuned for all sorts of fun information coming in our Reynoldsburg Connects email, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, check out our website at reynoldsburg.gov. Sign up for that once-a-month email blast. It gives you all the information about what's going on. With that, everybody, have a great rest of your time. Stay safe, and again, put your shopping carts away. We'll see you. Bye now.